First, CPS court hearing. What to expect? What do I do? This very first CPS court hearing is either going to be a detention hearing and or an initial hearing. Both of them are essentially the same type of hearing. It's just called different names depending on the status of the custody of your kids. If your children has already been removed from your care, then that very first court hearing is prior to the court hearing. That very first court hearing is going to be something called a detention hearing. If your child has not been removed from your care and currently in your care, that very first court hearing is something called an initial hearing. At that first court hearing, whether it's initial and or detention, the only issue that the judge typically addresses is whether or not the child should remain in your care or should be removed from your care. And the legal standard is very, very low. Typically, it's based off of the four corners of the report, aka prima facie. It's a very low legal standard, and most parents are often confused on what to expect and what to argue. That's not typically a court hearing where you argue the litigation. Argue not the litigation, argue the allegations. That's not the particular court hearing for that. That's more addressing, should they stay with you? Visitation. Also something called predisposition services, aka referrals, to be able to provide to you prior to your next court hearing, which will take place between 3 to 4 weeks from your first court hearing. But the most important thing to be addressed is if the child is planning to be removed from your care because there is some sort of prima facie safety concern, substantial risk of physical harm or emotional well-being, then the main other issue that must be argued is whether or not there was reasonable means to prevent removal. For domestic violence cases, there's typically almost always reasonable means to prevent removal. Filing a restraining order can help out as well too. But the circumstances of the domestic violence also plays a role too. If there is a severe physical abuse by one parent but not the other, removal of that parent is a reasonable means to prevent removal. And also taking classes, family therapy, individual counseling, parenting, child abuse class can be helpful to rectify that situation. Because the goal of it is to do whatever it takes to keep the family together, not the default of this removing. And oftentimes, that's typically what takes place when dealing with CPS cases. At Charlotte Law Firm, we're here to make sure you are protected, someone fights by your side, and someone informs you what you can and cannot do. Contact us so we could be there with you at your very first court hearing to inform you what to expect, but to make sure we help you succeed. At Charlotte Law Firm, we're here to help.